Do I already own a shade similar to all these? Yes. Did I need it? No. Did I buy it just because it was Hocus Pocus? 1000% yes. Hi everyone, it's Nini. Today I'm going to review the Witching Hour, the new Colourpop palette. I didn't have any witch themed earrings, but in going with the Hocus Pocus Halloween theme, I did dig out my skull earrings. I didn't become aware of this until the day that it launched. I'm not somebody who really follows new makeup releases that closely. People that I follow and subscribe to, you know, if they talk about an item, then if it catches my interest, I'll look into it. And that's what happened with this. Makeup Just for Fun released a video reviewing it on the day that it launched, and I was watching it that night. That was the first time I'd heard of this palette. I love the color story, and then it was Hocus Pocus, so I was like, so I bought it that night. I also wanted to get two of the lipsticks that they came out with this set. There was a black one and a kind of dark berry, perfect for fall kind of lip. But by the time I was on the site that night, all of the lipsticks were sold out. You get 12 eyeshadows, 5 shimmer, and 7 matte. Like I said, I really liked the color story of it. Oranges are my favorite thing to put on my eye. With my blue eye, no, orange just complements it. So when I saw all the orangey tones and then that yellow tone also is good for blue eyes. When I look at an eyeshadow palette, I'm not just looking at, oh, is that one a pretty color? Is that one a pretty color? I'm also looking at the entire palette and in my head already kind of working with it, you know, putting looks together. So when I looked at the color story for this one, I was looking at the mattes on top and I'm like, those would be perfect transition colors. These would be good crease colors to make things darker. This brown would be a perfect one to put under your eye if you just wanted some kind of a simple look. These three shimmers are my favorite kind of shimmers to use. I love like the champagne-y one, and then of course, like I said, the yellow and the orange really catch my eye. I did do some eye swatches of each eyeshadow. I will insert those clips here. So my overall thoughts on this palette is yes, it is good. Is it perfect? No. What I really liked about it were the mattes. The mattes were really impressive. My experience with Colourpop eyeshadows, I got some singles a few years ago and those were just matte ones and I was not impressed with them. I thought they were kind of dry. They were hard to blend. And then I also have their Sweet Talk palette and of course the Baby Yoda palette. The Sweet Talk one, I wasn't super impressed with the shimmers. The mattes were just a little bit on the dry side, not super pigmented. I do love the glitter in that palette though. Now with the Baby Yoda palette, I thought the mattes were not super impressive. I did think they're better than the Sweet Talk palette and better than the singles, but they didn't like blow me away or anything. But the shimmers in this palette did. So pigmented and were just beautiful. So when it comes to this Witching Hour palette, I love the mattes. The mattes are what blew me away and the shimmers were kind of like, meh. These three top ones and then this orange one right here were so easy to work with. They were pigmented and they didn't feel dry like my past experiences with Colourpop. They blended very well. There's a little bit of kick up in the pan with them, but not super bad. There really hardly wasn't any fallout and you'll see that in some of the eye swatches. The Hello Billy, this purple shade was kind of impressive too because usually when you have a purple eyeshadow, that's notorious for being dry and patchy and this one really wasn't bad, I didn't think. Now the shimmers were just kind of so-so. I don't want to say they were bad. I did like how they look on my lid. I think the Baby Yoda shimmers are better. They just seem to be a little bit smoother. And like I said, that doesn't mean that they're bad. They could have been better. I know Colourpop releases an eyeshadow palette pretty much every hour. How can eyeshadow from the same brand be so different like that? And because they release so many palettes, that kind of makes me wonder, do they have a bunch of irons in the fire and, you know, work with a bunch of different labs? And that's why one palette coming out of one lab, the shimmers are good, and one palette coming out of another lab, the mattes are good? It'd be nice to be consistent. The only other brand that I own a bunch of eyeshadow from in comparison is Juvia's Place and Colored Rain. All of my Colored Rain eyeshadows work the same, and I own a lot of them. And then Juvia's Place, I think I own 4 of those palettes, and shimmers and mattes and those also work the same. And that's just been my experience with them. Now, let's talk about the problem child in this palette, and that's this Fur Black is Black. The biggest criticism I've heard of this palette is, why is that not a black shade? You know, Fur Black is Black, and then it's a dark green. And I agree, the naming part of it doesn't make sense, but I get why they didn't put a black matte in the palette, because people complain about getting matte blacks. You know, that's really an eyeshadow that you don't use a lot of, so it would take a long time to go through it. If you are an eyeshadow palette junkie and you own, you know, at least 10 eyeshadow palettes, if there's a matte black in all of them, you're never going to get through all of that. Now, me, I'm a face paint artist, so blacks and grays are the eyeshadow that I pan the most of because I use it for shading. I never complain about a matte black. I will take all the matte blacks. So I get why they didn't put a matte black in it, but I don't understand why they named it black. Like, in looking at all the other names, they don't have anything that mentions the book. So I don't know if they could have named it something with the book. You know, could there be an I Smell Children or something? I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of other names that they could have come up with instead of black. And maybe they did have some of those names in their previous Hocus Pocus palette. That one came out last year, I believe, at this time. At first when I saw it, I thought, Hocus Pocus, I need to buy it. But the color story really didn't appeal to me that much. And I don't know what the names are in that palette. Maybe they used up all of the ones that they could think of in that palette, and so then they couldn't think of anything else for this one. It is also a problem child because it definitely has the most fallout. Is it pigmented? Yes. Was it easy to work with as far as blending? Yes. But it had the most fallout on my face out of all of the eyeshadows. It also stained a little bit. One of the looks that I did, I wore it for... No! Don't play with that! Yeah, I'm talking to you. I wore it for I think 4 or 5 hours, and when I took it off, my lid was just slightly stained from it, and just very, very slightly. If you didn't know that I had been wearing green eyeshadow that day, you probably wouldn't have noticed anything. I expected the purple to do that, but the purple didn't do that. Fur Black is Black is also making a little bit of a mess in the pan. I even cleaned that up a little, and it's still kind of messy, but it is a pretty shade. I absolutely love Hocus Pocus. It is definitely my favorite Halloween movie, and it's one of my all-time favorite movies so far in my face paint. Last year I turned my myself into Winnie and Billy, and this year I turned myself into Mary. I love that movie. So I'm excited about this palette, and I do like it. I think the color story is spot on. The mattes are spot on. The packaging, I mean, look at, you get the little cartoon witches. That's just super cute. I think it's got that magnetic closure, which is super nice to have. Overall, I think it's a great palette. I think it's something I'm gonna get a lot of use out of, even though I own way more eyeshadow than the average gal. I think I'm still gonna get a lot of use out of this just because I do love the colors, and the eyeshadows are very nice. I think my only complaints about the palette are obviously the Fur Black is Black, that dark green shade, and the fact that the eyeshadows are not consistent with other ones. I mean, it would be really nice to be able to rely on a brand to know, okay, if I get this shimmer, it's gonna perform this way. Maybe I can just use the mattes from the Hocus Pocus palette and then the shimmers from the Baby Yoda palette and just have the best of both worlds. You know, eat my cake and... Wait a minute. What's the saying? Eat my cake and... No. Have my cake and eat it too? Whatever. If you like Hocus Pocus, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Also, if you have bought this palette, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. If you want to check out any more of my face paint looks, you can follow me on Instagram at Nini__Marie. I occasionally have regular makeup on there, but it's mostly my face paint and SFX work. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.